minute.
Because it's recording.
Hello, Joe. This week on the House of Static, New Jersey original, singer, songwriter, and indie veteran, Downtown Mystic, a.k.a. Robert Allen.
Would you like to introduce our
Yeah,
guest?
there you go. So, welcome to House Static. I'm Bob Smith. That's Kilo House. And our guest today is Mr. Robert Allen, otherwise known as the Downtown Mystic, or just Downtown Mystic. As we all do, he's got his stage name, his brand name. So that's the Downtown Mystic. But anyway, so Robert, we started this podcast in January. And just really for the sake of exactly what we're doing here, to kind of connect with some of the folks that we've worked with and met and just kind of, dealt with over the years. So welcome.
Thank you. Good to be here. Good to meet you guys.
All right.
Good to put a face to all the words. You do great work.
Well, thank you very much, sir. As do you.
Yes, he does.
Right on. So anyway, and Robert, this is Kilo. Kilo House is a producer in LA and my co-host and my good friend. Kilo and I make a lot of music together. We just have a lot of projects that we're working on, including this little podcast here.
Yes.
So, and Kilo is in Los Angeles. I'm in upstate New York, and Robert is in New Jersey, my original home state. I don't know if I ever told you that, but
No.
I was born in Englewood. So.
Oh, I'm going there tomorrow.
All right on. So say hello to the folks, Robert. Introduce yourself. Where are you in New Jersey right now?
I am I recently moved. I was in North Jersey for over 40 years, about 25 miles northwest of Midtown Manhattan. And we moved a year ago. Just had the anniversary on 420. 1 year in the house here in Sunny Tom's River, which is the shore area.
Oh, yeah.
So North Jersey, we say down the shore, we mean it's like Seaside Heights, Lavallette, New Jersey. In this area, if they said down the shore, they'd probably be talking about, Long Beach Island, which is the next thing down.
Right on. And
we're kind of really like centralized Jersey.
I don't think people really realize what Jersey is like, right? Because everybody, people that don't live in New York and New Jersey have an image of Jersey as being either the Jersey Shore TV show.
Exactly.
Yeah,
that's
that ridiculous,
exactly what I was going to say.
Ridiculous TV show, or just the sort of urban bedroom community that is just over the George Washington Bridge. You know what I mean? Which is where I said I was from Englewood.
What is a bedroom community, bro?
Bedroom community. That's where people live in a big city like New York City. Bedroom communities. So people live in the bedroom communities and they work in the city. That's the idea. So
yeah, I'm a half hour from Neptune, New Jersey. Native son Jack Nicholson's birthday today.
There you go. Rock on.
Nice.
Yeah. So what I was saying, the Jersey Shore is most of Jersey, gorgeous. I mean, the reason there's a good reason it's called the Garden State, because it's a really beautiful place. And the Jersey Shore is it's fantastic. It's just it's a bunch of little towns all along the shore. You just kind of walk along and you're like in a different town, I'm in Point Pleasant now, and then Lavallette, blah, blah, blah. You just kind of keep going down, but it's just beautiful. Boardwalk for miles and miles. It's really nice. So
yeah, it's the summer place to be.
It really is. It's pretty great. You don't want to try to drive there in the summertime.
I
don't want to try to drive there anytime because I'm so far away, but any time of the year.
So, and we don't always talk this much about where somebody's from, but in the case,
but it's an interesting thing because I'm originally from New Hampshire and I know nothing about Jersey at all.
Right.
0%. I thought it was all like weird girls that whatever. I'm not going to talk about. Anyway.
Well.
Whoa.
Sorry.
Wow.
I lost my voice there. So anyway, the reason I'm talking so much about Jersey though is because Robert's from there, but also because you're not just from there, Robert. I mean, Jersey is like in your blood, right? I mean, and the music and the music scene in Jersey is legendary. I mean, you got obviously the Bruce Springsteens and Bon Jovis but there's tons, so many others. So
yeah, the 60s and 70s into the probably mid 80s, was really a happening musical place.
And you were right there in it.
Yeah, pretty much. Always a part of it. And it's crazy how many things happen at times that you least expect it.
That's awesome. And so, how'd you get started, and like when? I mean, I look, so I can tell folks I know you've been playing in various bands and such. You've been doing Downtown Mystic for I'll ask.
It's got 20 years now. Yeah.
Yeah.
What I started, it was like I started as like everybody else that saw the Beatles in the 60s. It started the craze, from Springsteen, Miami Steve will tell you the exact same thing. Tom Petty, it just started what became the second coming of rock and roll.
Right.
And it's just spawned an industry that everybody wanted to be part of, just bands in their basements and garages and all over the place. And then the 70s, I mean, you could play 24/7 in clubs, all up and down in Jersey.
That's awesome.
Very big musical club scene. And then kind of towards the shore, it goes in waves. It's happening for a few years and then it goes out of style and then it comes back. It's kind of what happened with Asbury Park. It was like a rejuvenation of it in from the mid to late 70s.
There's a pretty hip scene in Asbury Park now.
Yeah. Well, it's pretty much stayed that way. It's been really built up over the last 5 to 10 years.
Right.
So the whole boardwalk and beach there is like totally reborn again.
Yeah, there's some again in the block. I've got a number of like artists from the shore and especially from Asbury Park that are just kind of hipster, cool, groovy alternative rockers that they're doing some neat things. It's fun.
Yeah.
So did you always know you wanted to focus on making music? Like, was that always a plan, or did you think it was like you just died?
You know what? It was always music from the time I can remember. It was always around in the house, and really when I was even 5-6 years old, playing with my friends, I would have them, sing background parts to current things.
Right.
And I was always into music. And then, like I said, once the Beatles came, it was like, that was it. That was like the atom bomb going off. You were either in or out, and most people were in.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
The difference, right, between like your story and every other teenager from the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, or whatever, right? And the difference with our stories too is that we got stuck with it, right? We're still so
right.
And me as well, right? So like I'm 50 something years old. I just turned 52, and and some of my friends are accountants, some are doctors, and some are bass players. You know what I mean? But, and there's something in the brain that just makes some folks go, I'm just going to keep going with this. And you're one of those guys. Like, so you've had this successful independent music career going for, decades now. And it's impressive. I mean, you got songs licensed all over the place. You got records. You've been hanging out with rock stars.
It's crazy because it wasn't until the digital age that all that happened for me. And like to be a musician today, I mean, I look around and I go, I wonder how many kids are going to want to be forming bands,
right?
In the upcoming days. Who's playing instruments anymore? But at a time, it's like you couldn't ask for a better time to start because you have so many things at your fingertips now that, I mean, I had to spend 20, 30 years to get that experience.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I can, Well, I can tell you, especially working with Kilo, and Kilo, you could kind of fill in more on this. But what I've learned, because I'm like you, right? So I've been in bands my whole life, and I've played in bars for decades, and and that's the world I know. And the same thing, you think like how these are young kids starting bands anymore? Are they going and playing in bars? Are they doing those things? And not really.
Absolutely.
They are right, but they're doing it differently. It's just a different thing now, and that's kind of what I've learned doing the blog and working with Kilo and everything is that like in the 80s, I'd start a band and I'd be like, I'm going to start a metal band, or I'm going to start a new wave band, or I'm going to do this kind of music. And you're all in on that style of music, right? It's just not like that at all. Now people are just like, I'm going to make some music and we'll call it something when we're done. You know, and that's cool. So, yeah. So what do you, I mean, what's your take on that, Kilo? What do you think about it?
I mean, I had a good friend at Icon back when I was going to school there, explained that to me, that music was going to merge into this kind of melting pot of every genre mixed together type of thing. And I, as a young person, scoffed at him like, yeah, that's never going to happen. Well, it did happen.
Yeah,
it is happening now. It's going to continue happening until music doesn't need a genre anymore. It's just music is the genre, you know? So I think that's good, because you don't have to kind of pigeonhole yourself, or whatever the term is, into like one specific thing. It's still smart when you're starting out to have a brand, where you focus more on one thing, you know, but once people know your sound, then they're accepting of, like, for instance, we just released Retribalized, which does not sound like me necessarily at all, but it's still, people will listen to it from my fan base because it still has like the voice clips and stuff. So it's like, but I like that music has turned into this thing where it's like, who fucking cares what I'm writing today?
Right on, man.
We write music nowadays that doesn't have a genre, and may never have a genre, because by the time it does, there won't be a genre.
Yeah.
You know?
But then on the flip side of it, I think that the way the music industry has changed is that those that are working in specific genres, those genres themselves have kind of developed into these bubble industries unto themselves. You know what I mean? Like, more so than just like when, for instance, you know, we're growing up, like, everybody watched the same TV shows. Everybody knew the same hit songs. Everybody knew everything, right? But because we all did the same stuff, and there were 3 channels on TV, and that's just what we do. You know, there were 4 radio stations that you listen to. But now people that like Robert is a roots rocker, right? He's playing he's doing a lot of original stuff, but it's in a style that it's very intentionally retro style, like a roots kind of rock, 60s, 70s driven rock and roll, and 50s sometimes too. And that's a world unto itself. And there are fans, you know, Robert's got thousands and thousands of fans that are listening to that style of music. And I just think it's really interesting how I was just going to say, Robert, asked, you know, what's your take on that, Robert? How do you
I agree with Kilo in a way. I think it is kind of like an anything goes kind of situation today, because I mean, look, I put out this at the end of last year. I put out this thing called DownTown Demos, which were tracks that I did with a couple guys that were just doing beats.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool.
Yeah,
so there was no drum. So it was a very different thing for me. And here I am doing a roots kind of thing with their backing, and then all of a sudden it's like I got like 100,000 new listeners on Spotify that I would never have had before.
Yeah, it's a cool record too. It is. It's good. It's a neat record. So that's groovy, man. And that's awesome. Go ahead.
I think that we need to clarify for people that to make it in music, you don't have to do everything. I'm not saying that. When I said that, I want to make sure our listeners that are listening that want to start doing music don't feel like they need to just be like, I'm going to do every kind of music. Like, do what what makes you happy. But what I was saying was music these days has turned into what I just said, which is do what makes you happy, meaning he enjoyed doing that with the hip hop guys or whatever. And so he did that rather than going, I putting an image on himself. Right. So yeah, I just wanted to clarify so people don't take that and go, well, fuck, now I have to learn every genre. No, just do what comes out of you.
Well, Bob, the other thing is he said something about making it. What is making it today?
That is also a very good, very, very good question.
But see, I think that's good. But that's I like that about the music industry. I like all of these things we're talking. Because I worked in the business 20 years ago with major record labels, and it was awful business. I mean, it was just terrible. I was working like with the president's labels, right? And it was a nasty business and it was impossible to get into. And the ones that did get into it, half the time regretted that they were there, right. And so, yeah, it's the definition of making it right is very amorphous now, but right. I think that's a good thing. You can create.
It definitely is.
Yeah.
I can give you my take and my answer of your question if you want. I think making it is a very personal thing. So to every individual, making it looks different, right? To me, making it was being on Spotify, which is very easy to do nowadays. But when I started doing music, it was not. So to me, that was making it. So when I said making it, it's whatever that person is envisioning as like, oh my God, it would just be amazing. If, like when I wanted to DJ a festival, like I never thought that was possible, which I did. And I've done and stuff. But like to me, that was like, if I can do these things, so it's two very simple things to me that I can do anytime I want now was making it. So I think it is metamorphic, Bob, like where it just kind of changes throughout your career, as long as you never settle and keep growing.
Well, my personal motto of making is success is how you define it.
Exactly. That's exactly. It's a way less wordy thing than what I said, but meaning the same thing.
Then the obvious question at that point, then, Robert, is how do you define success as a musician?
I think exactly what Kilo was saying. You set kind of goals for yourself, like because I started like you being in bands, and then I decided that I'd rather concentrate on my songwriting and recording and producing. So I stopped doing all that. And then as I got older, it was like, oh, well, I'm going to start a publishing company. And then people started saying, oh, have you ever thought about managing? So I started managing people. I started managing bands. And my goals would change. The success became something different for me. But I would tell the bands, it's like, look, I had a band that we did they were like a cross between, Green Day meets Foo Fighters called The Discontent. And they really were where Green Day would go. They were there before Green Day had their big success the second time around. Right. And so in the mid 90s, there's this, everybody's talking about grunge and all and punk and rock. And yet, the major labels aren't touching it. Right. They're not, even though Kurt Cobain is dead, Nirvana's still the biggest band around, but nobody's signing anything like it. It's crazy. Yeah. So I put a record out in '96. I started at my Charlotte Records with them. Nothing happened. 5 years later, I now go to the radio was changing so dramatically that the only new music could be heard on specialty shows. Oh, yeah. And I got this band. I put out a track of theirs from '96. I put it out in 2000. 5 years later, in 2001, and the thing goes top 5 at all the specialty shows.
Nice.
That's awesome.
And the band doesn't understand it. It's like I said, first of all, here's success. Do you know how many CDs come across a program and music director's desk every day? So to me, success is that they actually took your CD out of the mail, opened it, and listened to the friggin' thing, and within 2 days, put it on a show on the radio. To me, that is like huge success.
I agree. And
they didn't understand that.
It's a good, well, because, like you said, like it's about how you define the success. So like for instance, a similar story, right? I have, because you're right, you can't get in the radio. You can't get, which is funny because radio is almost dead, but still it's impossible to get on it. You know what I mean? It's just the craziest thing. But but it did get a song that one of my songs that Kilo produced called High and Dry that we got on Sirius XM. And I got it on specialty shows first, and then they started playing it a little bit on that. It's actually on the Jersey, on Little Steven's channel. Cool. Little Steven's Underground Garage. So they played the song in there. Anyway, the point is that I you're right. Like that once I found it, because I knew I got on the specialty show, but then when I got a royalty check, and granted, it's not a big one, but I got paid like $20, and I was like, "What the hell is this for?" I didn't, you know what I mean? I didn't know
What did I do?
Exactly. What did I get a $20 royalty check for? And then I looked into it. But hey, they've been playing my song, and that was a goal I'd had my whole life, really, to get a regular rotation and get royalties from being on a regular rotation on a radio station. So that was success, and I loved it. It made me very happy.
Yeah, success for me is I realized that at my age, I'm not going to be competing with the Reckless Kellys of the world.
Right.
So it's like, for me, success is, hey, I can go record a song and I can put it out, and people like yourself are going to write about it. It's going to get played on Spotify. It may get picked up and get put into a TV show. So it's just like, right. I know that I can create a song, put it out, and I know people are going to hear it. And to me, that is the very definition of success. Because for so long, I spent 20 years where you'd go in the studio, you record something, and then you had to send it to an A&R guy at a recording company. And if they didn't pick it up, nobody ever heard of you again.
Yeah, right. That's right.
Right.
So, we should talk about a couple of those recent successes of yours, by the way, because you kind of touched on them there a little bit. As we mentioned, multiple times, you're from Jersey, you're in Jersey, you're very much Jersey. And that isn't just, you weren't just in proximity with some of those famous rock stars that are from Jersey. You know them. And you actually had an album last year, a couple years ago.
Yeah.
Right. What was Downtown Mystic on E Street or whatever, right? And you had, so Robert had the bass player, Gary Talent, and the drummer, Max Weinberg, from Bruce's E Street band. And I mean, I just said that very calmly, but I mean, they're in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, these guys. I mean, they're one of the most famous rhythm sections that's ever played together. And they were on your album.
And one of the really weird things about that is, in looking at their track records, I mean, Max and Gary individually have done hundreds of sessions with other artists.
Right.
But as a unit, they are the rhythm section for the E Street Band, which backs Bruce Springsteen, and they were on retainer for Bruce. So when I was working with them, if Bruce called them and said, "Hey, listen, I got to go, you got to be in the studio tomorrow," no matter what they were doing, they dropped it and they were in the studio with Bruce. And you had to be cool with that.
Well, let me tell you, if Bruce called me up right now and said, "I need you in the studio," I'd be there in a minute.
I think I don't blame them.
Yeah. But looking at actually outside of Bruce Springsteen, backing Bruce Springsteen, they recorded together on the first Ian Hunter album after he left Mott the Hoople. They backed Ronnie Spector. They did Gary U.S. Bonds things. This is really, early 80s. And then maybe one or two other things, but those one or two other things were me. So really, on one hand, you could say this is how many artists they have backed together as the rhythm section.
It's amazing. It's amazing. And they did they would played on the whole album. I mean, you didn't just get them in for one song. It's a whole bunch of tunes. Really very cool. How'd that happen? I mean, did you know them?
Oddly enough, I met Gary in New York.
That's funny. Not in New Jersey.
If you wanted to get signed, you had to, New Jersey was the cover band capital of the world. And the Asbury scene wasn't happening yet. So you had to go to New York. You played CBGB's, you would, the Bitter End, those kind of clubs in the Village. And then there were some Upper East Side and West Side clubs. There was a very small bar on First Avenue and 76th Street called JP's. And the very next block was Catch a Rising Star. Mm-hmm. But JP's was a hangout for the music industry. So, I mean, hanging out there on any given night, I mean, I saw Mick Jagger, I saw Billy Joel, I saw Bill Murray, you met all these kind of people, James Taylor, all these people were hanging out. So it was, we would go there with the very idea of
meeting some rock stars.
Place to be, right. And also there were music industry people that were hanging out there. Right. So we had done a single, an actual 45 vinyl. And this is like towards the end of 1979. And you know what, we're playing there at one weekend. And I said, I'm just going to put the 45s on tables. And
that's a cool idea.
So that's what I did. And at the end of the night, the waitress comes up to me. I knew Chris, and she says, "Oh, can I have one of your singles for my boyfriend?" I said, "Yeah." And I reach in the pack, I give to her, and almost as a second, just as an afterthought, I said, "Oh, by the way, who's your boyfriend?" She goes, "Oh, Gary Talent." And I went, "From the Street Band?" She goes, "Yeah." Next time we play there, she goes, "Oh, Gary loved your record. He wants to meet you."
That's awesome.
Part of it.
What a cool story. It's hilarious that you guys are from basically the same town and
you meet somewhere else.
You meet in New York City.
That's crazy.
Well, I went to high school with Max. Max is a year older than me.
That's excellent, man. And Max Weinberg is, and people would know, he was, what was he on? Was he the band leader for Conan?
O'Brien.
What's Conan O'Brien, right? Yeah. That's awesome. Is he still? He's not still, is he? I don't know.
No, he's not. But he still has he left there with what he calls the Max Weinberg 7, and he still does shows.
Right. Yep. That's excellent, man.
Awesome. So also you talked about sorry, go ahead, Bob.
No, go ahead. I didn't know.
Oh, I was just going to say, you also talked about some of your songs being picked up by TV shows and stuff like that. Can you kind of explain to our listeners, how that happens? Did they approach you and say, we want to put your shit in this, or?
Again, it was just, I think today it's as important as a musician that you really have to invest in yourself.
Right.
When we were coming up, it was just musicians just we play, we practice, we go and we play, we write songs, we may go record them and all, but you were looking for managers, you were looking for other people to tell you.
You just wanted to go have some fun,
What
somebody else do with the business.
Nobody knew what the music industry. The whole idea was we got to get a record deal. What's a record deal? We have no idea, but everybody, that was the goal. So today you have all these avenues. So sync licensing didn't really come into vogue until around 2008, 2009, and and I could kick myself because I had done an album and put the album out. And then the next year I did another album, but this time I had heard about sync licensing and they like instrumental. So after you do a mix of your track with the vocals, just mute all the vocals.
That's right.
And redo it. And now you have two tracks. One's an instrumental mix and one's your regular mix.
Yeah.
And 9 times out of 10, it's the instrumental mix that's going to get put on TV.
Yeah, but so what was this? So
what I was doing was they're still around. Sonic bids.
Oh, Sonic bids. Okay, that's what I was gonna, because I've used other
Sonic
ones.
bids had just started, and there were those things you could they would put up. If you're not familiar with Sonic bids, it's I want to get the radio play, or I want to get a review, and you can opt into these different things. I want to DJ a festival. They have opportunities for that kind of thing. So there was this guy that was looking to start a music library for a new company it was called Jingle Punks, which I didn't know. So this is 2009. I submit a song, and of course, typical Sonic bids fashion. A month later, I get a notice that your song's been picked up.
Right.
So now I got to go, and I'm can I still send this to you? And the guy's, yeah, send it to me, no problem. So Jingle Punks was just starting, and Jingle Punks today is probably the biggest supplier of music to all the TV shows, Pawnbrokers, American Pickers, anything you can see that's on A&E or the History Channel, they pretty much. So I got in kind of on the ground floor in a way.
That's cool.
That's awesome,
That's
man.
very cool.
Well, yeah. Well, and Kilo's asking because we want to know too. We're making these songs too. We're trying to do it because I've tried a bunch of them. I tried Sound Traders.
Singlepunks.com. They're always listening. The only thing now is at the time you could be non-exclusive, which meant that if I submitted a song to Jingle Punks, I could take the same song and submit it to another company and take the same song, go to a third or a fourth company. And there was no problem. Today, they want to, if they're going to take a song of yours, you're going to have to go for exclusivity for at least a year.
Yeah.
So the whole thing has changed. Even that has changed dramatically.
It has, and it is tough to get a gig. I've tried a couple of different websites that do these things, Song Trader, and which I've not had any success with. I'll be honest. I have never picked up anything with Song Trader, and a couple other ones. But yeah, I'm gonna. I haven't even thought about Sonic Bids. I mean, I just always thought of Sonic Bids as like an EPK site, and that was it. But I didn't realize that they were that involved. They had all the connections to.
Yeah, they had all different kind of opportunities. If your band wanted to play, for gigs, for touring,
right
all
on.
kinds of stuff. I assume that they still have, but I haven't really done anything with them probably in 10 years. But
right on. Well,
I'm sure it's evolved way far past that now. It's probably an even better company at this point.
Yeah,
more efficient.
Wow.
So this far into your career, how do you stay inspired? I've been wondering this whole time, because inspiration is a thing that like you have to kind of find, some people think, or you kind of force your way into being inspired by doing drugs or whatever you do. How do you stay inspired this far into my future, for instance?
When I was younger, I was always, my main inspiration was listening to new music. I sought out, if you saw my record collection, from the Beatles to the Stones to Zeppelin to, all the major, there were no underground acts in those days.
Right.
Everybody became major. So, you were always looking for, Hendrix just is putting out a new album. It's like, wow, I got to hear this, So Tom Petty was putting out, Springsteen, all these guys, was like, what's their latest record sound like? So that to me is always was my inspiration for
music inspires music.
Here's something, oh God, I got to write something like that,
Right.
Today it's a little harder because I'm older, but I also have what inspires me is the fact that, well, there's songs that, I've over the years just fell by the wayside. And it's kind of like I'm doing that now with a bunch of songs that it's like, you know what? I never thought about these songs when I wrote them. And
it's funny. I'm smiling because I'm doing literally the same thing. So, because Keela and I write a bunch of new music together, but I've got 500 original songs that I've written over the last 30 years. So I've been gradually, every once in a while, I re-record them. And, Keela mix and master it, and then I'll put it out because I got this little small deal with the German label that I can put songs out. So, I'm doing exactly the same thing. Just picking up these old songs. That one was pretty good. I'm going to re-record that. And I
we just finished
did one
2 days ago or something.
That's right.
Yeah.
So that's fun.
That's very cool. It's funny you say music because Bob and our listeners will definitely say this is true. I've always said I'm not inspired by music at all. I'm inspired by movies. So I don't get inspired by listening to other artists, but anytime I see a movie or a YouTube thing that's kind of cool, I suddenly have this weird thing where I'm like, I got to write a song right now. And it has nothing to do with the sound necessarily, but it's like, because I was synesthesia, I kind of, music is a visual thing to me anyway. So it's like, I'm not inspired by music at all, even though I listen to it all the time. And
right.
Both me and Bob get to hear new music all the time. So that's cool. But it's like, it's cool to see that there are people that are inspired by music.
Right. Yeah.
I'm just not used to that,
That's funny.
Very cool.
That's cool. So what do you got planned for the next? What's next, Robert?
Well, I've been... for the first time in like 4 years, I'm back in the studio, and I actually went back to where I am. It was like in January, I put out this thing called rock and roll, 21st century rock and roll,
right on.
Which was really my idea of like, this is my point of view on rock and roll at this point in time, because I don't hear it. I don't even know where the bar is. Like I said, there used to be, Springsteen or Petty or somebody would put out a record and you would go like, oh, that's the,
That's where rock and roll is right now.
Everybody would kind of go towards that and be listening to it. Today, it's like, I have no idea where the bar is. So I think, I'm going to make my own.
That's fantastic. That's it. But that's the
doing
answer.
That, with that coming out, it was like, now I'm only a half hour from Long Branch, and the studio in Long Branch is Shorefire Studios. That's where I recorded with Gary and Max. And I haven't been there for a while because Gary sold his interest, and once he sold, I never went back. So it's like discovering a whole new studio again, because my engineer died a couple of years ago, and the studio was sold. And that's another thing, studios, just where are they going? I mean, it's amazing. I look at sometimes there's when I was mixing the last album, the guy was saying, he goes, I wonder what people are going to do with this, and he's looking at a board with 24 inputs, and it's crazy. It's like
it is, and I've spent a lot of time behind big boards like that, and a lot of many hundreds of hours in recording studios, recording to big 2-inch tape, and I don't, and now this is my studio. I mean, this is just a bedroom in my house.
I mean, it's still really good to use them. I mean, I learned how to use them in my schooling, and I do say, if you have the opportunity to use them, please use the big deck, because it makes there's just a different quality of the music.
Oh my God,
when you use real compressors, not a compressor in your computer, there's just a different sound completely.
Oh, yeah.
Going back to Shorefire, it turns out that, one of the reasons I was always not willing to go back, because they had this MCI board in there originally, which wasn't a great board. But the new owner, Joe DeMeo, when he came in, he was a big fan of all the English rock stuff from, late 60s and 70s. And the board that was at Olympic Studios, where the Stones and the Beatles and Zeppelin all cut their albums, was this board called Helios. It was kind of got replaced by SSL, but the Helios board was the board that was in Apple Studios.
Right.
So for a guy like me that does retro classic sounding stuff, it's like being a kid in the candy store.
Yeah, that's excellent.
Right. Absolutely.
That's fantastic. Yeah, there's nothing like recording on analog. I mean, there really isn't. It's just beautiful.
Absolutely.
It's fantastic.
It's so true.
So I've been recording since January, and I've got, I'm going to send it to you. The new track is called Fly. It's going to be my first single that goes to radio on May 9th. And it's part of that session I did with the hip hop guys. It was kind of like just, I was up in New Hampshire. The guy says, I can get a free studio, SSL boy with a free studio. And go up to New Hampshire. There's 100 acres, the middle of nowhere. Right. And for 3 or 4 days, we're just in the studio smoking and going berserk. Anything you want to
do. That's fantastic.
That's great, dude.
And it was I had something like 15 ideas, and this was one of the last ones I did. And it was like, I'm going to write a song about that, and finally recorded it. And so I recorded it in January, mixed it a couple of weeks ago, and it's coming out next month.
Rock on,
Very
man.
cool.
Hey,
Very cool.
I have one question. I'm just picking your brain again, honestly. But you mentioned it's going to. You said when you release the song, it's going to go to radio. Are you working with independent radio promoters, or are you just calling the stations yourself?
I have distribution through the Orchard, and one of the things that they had a digital promoter, and it's called iPluggers.
Oh, I've heard of that. Yeah,
and iPluggers is you submit. You can submit a single, you can submit an album. And they'll, I don't know, 20,000 stations they got, and, you pick your genre, and they mail out the emails. I get airplay I average airplay in at least 20 countries around the world.
That's awesome.
amazing.
I've taken more than any interview we've done, Robert. I have taken a handful of notes here. I'm going to Jingle Punks. I'm going to iPluggers.
Yes. And everyone listening is probably taking notes as well.
Yeah, really. Yeah.
Yeah, go to Marvin at iPluggers. Tell him Robert Allen sent you.
I will do that, man. Rock on. All
Awesome.
right. Well,
so usually we end our show. I think you probably saw this in your email, but everyone that's watching knows this. We end it by doing a kind of a round robin of question asking, I guess you could call it. So one of us, which is going to be Bob this week, is going to ask an industry related question. Then I'm going to ask a random personal, just random whatever question. And then you have to ask a question, but we all have to answer our own question.
Yeah, everybody answers each question.
All three of us are going to answer it. So meaning don't ask something you don't want to have to answer. That's why we make it like that. So one of us doesn't make up a fucked up question.
Yeah. What's the most embarrassing thing you've ever done?
Because then you're going to have to put it out there too. So we're going to do that now. So Bob, go ahead. You go first.
All right, sure. Yeah. Okay. So mine, this goes right in line with what we were talking about too, which is cool. So I was thinking about this about myself, and then you have like me, have been writing songs for a very long time. So do you remember what was the first song you wrote?
Oh yeah.
What was it? What was the first?
It was called I Don't Care.
Oh, nice. Rock on.
I just had learned a C progression on guitar. So I put all my knowledge to work on one song. Yeah.
Very nice. Very nice.
That's awesome.
So Kilo, what's your answer?
Are you asking like this kind of music or like the first
whatever?
Thing I wrote?
As I always say, that the question is open to interpretation.
I know,
whatever you consider your first song.
Well, the first song I wrote in EDM world was called Happiness, and it took me doing it for a while and then getting super stoned one night on mistake, and then I wrote the rest of the song. And then before that, my first song I wrote with a band was called I Cry, which is kind of funny because one of them sounds sad. It was like an emo-y punk band, so that's what it was called. So it's kind of like I had one that's a really happy
Happiness and I Cry.
Both of them were happy songs, but they have dual names. So yeah, that's my answer.
Well, cool.
Okay, now my turn to ask a question.
But my answer would be So it would depend on what you call the song, I guess, but probably what I would call the song. The first time I wrote something that would legitimately be a song was really three instrumentals that I did in high school with a couple of my buddies, my buddy Matto, the drummer, and Todd, my best friend, the bass player that I play with now. And there were three instrumentals. They were called Meat and Potatoes, Can You Juggle? Meat and Potatoes, Can You Juggle? And Dueling Dillweed. And there you go. Those were my first songs.
That's a very interesting.
They were surprisingly good for how stupid the titles were. They were actually pretty good. So anyway, there you go. That's my question. We'll go with Kilo, and then Robert, you'll ask the last question. How about that?
Okay. My question is, what is one activity that you do in your everyday life that people probably would not think you do? Because you're a musician or whatever, you can interpret it however you want, but I assume it's because of music or your age or who knows.
All right. That's a good question. What do you do that people wouldn't expect you to do?
Yeah.
It's a tough question.
Well, I have lots of limitations that people think that I don't. So I don't think we told Robert that I'm in a wheelchair.
Oh, yeah. Kilo's in a wheelchair. Yeah.
Kind of it's a scooter cart fun thing. So that's why I asked it, because it's like I was looking over here at something I do that people don't think I do or would do. So that's why I came up with that.
Well, I'll answer while Robert thinks. How about I'll say that the thing that I do that people that is insane, and people I should say.
Sure, that's even better. Yeah,
I know. Well, you already know this, Kilo, because you posted the video. So I live in an old house.
Oh, yes.
I live in this old 200-year-old house in upstate New York. And I've got like 10 acres of land behind me. There's all kinds of animals and everything that live around here. And I've got this old chicken coop in my backyard that is like 200 years old. And in it lives a possum. So I've got a possum living in my chicken coop in the back. So every day I go out and put some cat food in a bin so that the possum and his raccoon friends that come and hang out can have a snack at night. So that's what I do every day. That is insane, and no one would expect that. So rock on. All right. Okay, well, so Robert, what about you?
The only thing I can think of that maybe people, I don't know, but I try to walk every day. Get out for fresh air and walk and clear my head and think of things to do. And
that's cool.
Right on, man.
You know, that's
a less crazy answer than anything I said.
You're like,
I guess a lot of people do it though.
Yeah, sure.
Except for me.
Yeah, that's a good point. So what was your answer, Kilo?
My smart assery wants to say drive a car with my feet because everyone fucking asks me, how do you drive a car? And I'm like, how do you drive a car? Right? That's not my answer. Just now everyone knows that. We got that out of the way. Actually, I like skateboarding. So I do like downhill longboarding, like fast as fuck on my knees. I am not going to explain exactly how it works, but I do that. And no one would think I do something like that.
No, I didn't know you
like
did that.
See this dude that like is in a wheelchair that you don't know can like stand up if they need to and stuff, and you're like, oh, he probably does nothing fun. Right. Because I do all of the fun things. But that's what I was looking at. My longboard's like right in my studio, right over there. So I was like looking at it, I was like, that's a great question.
There you go.
There we go.
All right.
Okay. Now he has to ask a question.
Yes. Robert.
You know, I've been trying to get my brain around. So the only thing, I'm wearing this hat that says the Beatles, and just because of, you know, the Get Back special and all, what is it about the Beatles that makes them so timeless?
Oh, I have a great answer.
Go ahead.
Their producer,
George
their
Martin,
producer did such a good fucking job that even people like me are trying to recreate that amazingness that he put into those records. That's just my opinion.
Oh, wow.
I could be wrong, but I love that producer. Is one of my inspirations. Every time I work on shit, even if it's nothing like the Beatles, I still want to do something that is that high quality, but also he experimented with shit that they weren't doing, like panning hi-hats all the way to the right. Doing weird
George Martin's amazing. Absolutely.
So, I mean, that's just my opinion, but I think it does have to do with how amazing he did, because I don't know if they would have been as good a band if they had just like a rinky-dink producer that didn't get everything right and the quality out of them that they needed.
Right.
Well, I think you're right, and I'll follow up. My answer basically will just be an addendum to that, because I think that what made the Beatles special was all of them and the producer together. Like you couldn't have the White Album or Sgt. Pepper's if you didn't have George Martin, Paul McCartney, John Lennon. Right. Yeah, I mean, you just had to have like that. All three are integral to that formula. And granted, I mean, I'm not to diss Ringo or George, but you could do it without them. you couldn't do it without John Paul and George. But you could. I just really, I think anyway. And I think that the songwriting, like the sort of yin yang of Lennon McCartney, is just one of the most unique and beautiful things in pop music ever. And because you got the heart of John Lennon, which is, you know, massive, and just he's a philosopher and a poet and just a beautiful, beautiful mind. And then, you know, just the insane pop abilities of Paul McCartney. I mean, he can write a melody in his sleep that he did and does, and you know, he's written he's the most successful songwriter of all time, for damn good reason. You know what I mean? So yeah, I think it's the formula of the three geniuses together. You know,
awesome. Yeah. So what about you?
For me, it's like there's something about them that talking about what Kilo's getting to about sound, the sound of their records, and when you're in the studio, and I work with the drummer I work with is Steve Holley, and Steve Holley was the last drummer for McCartney and Wings when he got busted in Japan.
Wow.
So, you know, he's recorded with McCartney at the Abbey Road and all, and he has all these stories. He comes in, he's got this tambourine, And he says, yeah, I went in the closet one day and I picked this tambourine up, and you're hearing and you're going, that's the tambourine Ringo's playing on Day Tripper, and we can work it out. You know, you just go to this place.
It's amazing.
And there's like, when you're in the studio and the Beatles come up, it's like reverenced. It's like this, they're like the holy grail of recording.
They are, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Sgt. Pepper's was done on a 4-track. I mean, that was remarkable. I mean, I spent years working on a 4-track, and I'm proud of some of the stuff I did on 4-track. And I was real glad when everything went digital and I didn't have to.
I just found out. I mean, all these years I thought, Paperback Writer, that riff was George Harrison, and I just read that Paul McCartney played that riff. He's the guy that plays the riff.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah, Paul and John they were all good guitar players. Actually, Let It Be, their last song, all three of them played solos. There's a long guitar solo section at the end of Let It Be, and it's John, Paul, and George all doing solos. They did that on purpose. That was like their farewell. Like everybody did a guitar solo. Pretty cool.
That's very cool, and they're fucking gods.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, I think that's probably it. But before we go, Robert, is there anything else you wanted to say, or anything else you want to?
No, just keep an eye out and ear out for the new single, Fly.
Perfect.
Right on.
Awesome, man.
Thank
you for being on our show. We really appreciate it. We've been really excited about this interview, and it was great to get to meet you and talk to you a little bit.
Same here, Kilo.
Right on, man. All right,
Bob. So great to see you after all this time.
Yeah, right.
I know you.
Absolutely. Well, let's not be strangers. How about that?
Good.
All right, guys. Well, as you know, I got another deadline I got to get to, so I'm gonna call it. But thank you, everyone, for joining us. Thank you so much, Robert.
Hey, man. My pleasure.
Thank you, Kilo.
Of course. Anytime, bro.
See you guys later.
Bye.
Bye.
Hey, let's take a minute.